The town she came from had a population of 259 people. This is not a figure that changes much. Nutbush, Tennessee, unincorporated, no city limits in the legal sense, its general boundaries marked by signs on Highway 19 that read simply Nutbush, unincorporated. Our Tirowafaris Dure has always been the kind of place that the world does not come to. It is the kind of place people come from, the kind of place that exists at the beginning of stories rather than in the middle of them. The flat agricultural land of western Tennessee where cotton was grown and church was attended every Sunday, and the distance to the nearest city was measured in both miles and in the particular kind of longing that a person who has a very large interior life and a very small exterior world develops over the years of their childhood. Anna Mae Bullock was born there in 1939. She grew up in that flat land, in the houses of various relatives, attending Flag Grove School and Spring Hill Baptist Church, and absorbing the specific education of a rural western Tennessee childhood in the 1940s. The Firdramanaltreds, Chatak Saksatans Kastrides, the community that gathered on Sundays and meant it, and the music. Always the music, which was everywhere in that world, in the church and in the homes, and in the specific quality of a community that sang together, because singing together was one of the things that communities do when they have very little else, and understand, at some level below the articulate, that the singing is not nothing, that it is, in fact, one of the things most worth having. She left Nutbush as a teenager and did not go back. This is not unusual for people from small places who become large things. The leaving is the condition of the becoming, and the returning is complicated in ways that the leaving was not. She went to East St. Louis, where her mother had moved, and then to the clubs where the Kings of Rhythm played, and then into 16 years of stages that belonged to someone else, and then out the other side of all of that into the rebuilding and the Grammy stages and the stadiums, and eventually to Küsnacht, Switzerland, where she had found the specific peace that had eluded her for the first several decades of her life. All of that happened, and behind all of it, unchanged and unchanging in the way that small places are unchanged by the large things that happen to the people who leave them, was Nutbush, Tennessee, with its 259 people and its highway signs. She played everywhere else. This is worth sitting with for a moment, because the scale of it is genuinely difficult to absorb. She played the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro in front of 182,000 people, the largest paid concert audience in history at the time, a number that the Guinness Book of World Records entered and kept. She played Wembley Stadium in London in front of 60,000 people and rose above the stage on a round platform and sang "Private Dancer" suspended in the air while 6 decades of her life moved through her. She played arenas in Chicago and amphitheaters in Los Angeles and stadiums in Zurich and concert halls in Tokyo and the stages of every city that the music industry considers large enough to matter. She played over the course of a career that spanned more than 4 decades of active touring to an estimated total audience that exceeds most of the numbers available to describe it. She never played Nutbush, not because she did not want to, not because she had forgotten where she came from or did not understand what the place had given her. She had written a song about it, after all, in 1973, a song called Nutbush City Limits that she would perform for the rest of her career, a song that described the place with the specific affection of someone who remembers it clearly and has made peace with having left it. She knew what Nutbush was. She carried it with her in the way that people carry the places that made them, not as a burden, but as a foundation, the thing that is present in every room you walk into without being visible in any of them. But Nutbush had no stage, no venue, no arena, no amphitheater, no club, no hall. Nutbush had 259 people and a highway and the flat cotton fields and Spring Hill Baptist Church and Flag Grove School, where she had learned to read and had learned that the distance between where she was and where she wanted to be was real and crossable and would require everything she had. There was nowhere in Nutbush for a concert to happen. The world could not come to Nutbush because Nutbush had nowhere to put it. In the early years of the new century, she went back. Not publicly, not with an announcement or a press release or any of the apparatus that accompanied her movements in the world that had been constructed around her fame. She went back the way she had always done the things that mattered most privately, quietly, without ceremony, in the specific unhurried way of someone who has decided to do something for herself rather than for anyone watching. She went to Nutbush, Tennessee, and she drove the highway past the signs that read Nutbush, unincorporated. And she went to Spring Hill Baptist Church, where she had stood in the children's choir, and her voice had climbed above the other voices and landed in the body of an old woman in the front pew and moved something there that had not been moved in a very long time. She went inside. She did not tell anyone she was coming. The church was there, white-clappered and unchanged in the essential way that small churches in small communities are unchanged. The same building, the same pews, the same light coming through the same windows in the same direction. She sat in it. Whatever happened in those minutes, whatever moved through her in that space, whatever conversation occurred between the woman she had become and the girl she had been, was private, belonging entirely to her. One of the things she kept in the category of things that were hers alone. She left Nutbush and did not speak publicly about having gone back. The town went on being what it had always been, 259 people, the highway, the fields, the church, and the school, Flag Grove School, where Anna Mae Bullock had attended classes in the early 1940s, a small wooden building that had been standing since the late 19th century and had educated generations of children from the farming community before falling into disuse and beginning the slow process of becoming a memory rather than a building. That building became something else in 2014. On September 26, 2014, the restored Flag Grove School opened its doors as the Tina Turner Museum on the grounds of the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center in Brownsville, the nearest town to Nutbush, a few miles down the highway, large enough to have the infrastructure that Nutbush itself never had. The restoration had been careful and respectful. The building returned to something close to what it had been when she sat in it as a child, the details of her early life and education, preserved and presented for the people who would come to see them. And people came. They came from everywhere. This is not a figure of speech. The Tina Turner Heritage Days, the annual event held the fourth weekend of September at the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center, built around the opening anniversary of the museum, draws visitors from countries whose relationship to Nutbush, Tennessee, was, before Tina Turner, essentially non-existent. People fly from Europe and Australia and Japan and South America to stand in the flat agricultural land of western Tennessee and take their photographs under the signs that read, Nutbush, birthplace of Tina Turner, to walk the guided tours of the area where she grew up, to sit in the church where her voice had first done what it would spend 60 years doing. Entering people and moving something there. The scale of it is its own kind of irony, and its own kind of answer to the question that her career poses. She could not go back to Nutbush to perform because Nutbush had no stage, so the world built one in the form of an annual pilgrimage, not a concert, not the thing that she had given to stadiums from Rio to London, but something that might be its equivalent for a place that could not contain a stadium. People gathering in a specific location because a specific person came from there and made something that mattered. People traveling enormous distances to stand in the place where it began. The Heritage Days include tribute concerts, performances of her music in the flat Tennessee air, the songs she wrote about this place and the songs she made famous in every other place, return to their origin by other voices in the presence of the community she came from. She was not there for any of it. By the time the museum opened in 2014, Tina Turner was living in Küsnacht, Switzerland, in the house beside the lake that she had built with Erwin Bach over nearly 3 decades. She was 74 years old. She had had a stroke in 2013. She had given Erwin Bach one of his kidneys and was recovering from the transplant. The Swiss life, the lake, the quiet, the specific peace of a place chosen entirely for itself rather than for what it could give a career, had been her home for years, and it was where she stayed. She could not be in Nutbush for the opening of the museum that bore her name in the school where her life had begun. The distance between where she was and where she came from which had always been enormous, measured in decades and continents and the specific gravity of a life lived at the scale hers had been lived, was, in 2014, also physical. She was in Switzerland. Nutbush was in Tennessee. The world that had come to Nutbush because of her was there without her. There is something in this that resists the ordinary vocabulary of sentiment. It is not tragedy, because she had found the thing she needed and was living inside it, beside the lake in the quiet. It is not irony exactly, though there is irony in it. The woman who wrote a song about a place she could not stay, whose name now drew the world to that place, unable to be there when the world arrived. It is something more complicated and more true than either of those frames, the specific complexity of a life that has traveled very far from its beginning and found its way back, but not all the way, not to the exact point of departure, because the exact point of departure was too small for the life to fit back into it. She had given Nutbush the only thing she could give it, which was the song. Nutbush City Limits, the semi-autobiographical account of the place that made her, the church house and the gin house and the schoolhouse and the outhouse, the speed limit of 25 and the motorcycles not allowed, the Friday store runs and the Sunday church attendance and the specific rhythms of a farming community in western Tennessee in the middle of the 20th century. She had written it in 1973 and performed it for the rest of her career, transformed it from a soul number into a rock showstopper, recorded it live in arenas from Rio to London, let it become the thing that always brought the show home to the place it came from, regardless of which city the show was happening in. Every time she sang it, she went back to Nutbush. And every September, in the fourth weekend of the month, Nutbush comes to meet her, à la dure de dure Andrine, in the form of the people who arrive from every corner of the world she traveled to, who make their way to the flat land of western Tennessee and stand in the place where it began and listen to her voice, recorded or performed by tribute artists, returning to the field and the church and the school where it was first understood what it was capable of doing. The museum stands. The heritage days continue. The signs on Highway 19 still read, Nutbush, unincorporated. Spring Hill Baptist Church is still there, white clapboard, the same light through the same windows, and somewhere in all of it, in the people who come from far away to stand in the place where a girl once sang in a children's choir and made an old woman cry, is the answer to the question that her career, in its full scale, poses about what music is for and what it does, and how far it travels and where it goes when it arrives. It goes inside people. It moves things there that have not been moved. It travels from a children's choir in a small church in a town of 259 people to stadiums in Rio and London and back again in the form of the people who heard it in those stadiums and made their way, eventually, to the place where it began. She never played Nutbush, but Nutbush heard her anyway. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more untold moments from the lives of music's greatest legends, the places that made them, the distances they traveled, the songs that always brought them home. And if you've ever left a place and carried it with you, tell us about it in the comments. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one of these stories.